Last week, Black Lives Matter Charleston had 2 rallies and a sit-in. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with the organizer, Muhiyyidin D Baha, one-on-one. So, here we sit inside a location which is really 2 blocks from a couple of previous events that occurred here in Charleston over the past couple of days. 2 rallies and a sit-in. I'm curious, what sticks up in your mind right now?
This is a crisis of democracy. I remember JFK's quote, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable." It's a crisis of democracy. Those of us who believe in peaceful revolution, nonviolent demonstration, like Black Lives Matter Charleston, we are trying our best to bring forth the demands, the cries, the anger, and the attention to the public of what we've been asking for here in North Charleston and what's being asked for all over the country. We want to end police killings, very simply.
Baton Rouge, as you know, on Sunday, at least 3 officers were killed, 6 others were shot, including the suspect. When you think of that, where are you emotionally?
This is unfortunate. This is a crisis. When I say this is a crisis of democracy, I mean the people have no faith in a justice system, and they have taken justice in their own hands. When you have officers that have killed more than 400 civilians because they feared for their lives this year, just because they feared for their lives, and they go into a courtroom and they're not held accountable, the democracy is broken, the checks and balances is broken. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. We are trying to make sure that we can bring forth solutions to end police killings, to hold police officers accountable so the violence does not continue. We're non-violent demonstrators, but we understand the principles of democracy. And when there's no checks and balances and when officers are not being held accountable for what they're doing in our community, it's inevitable that people will fight back.
Speaking of which, let's turn to Charleston and go back to the rally on Friday. It took place at noon around Marion Square. And that has me thinking, what was the difference between that rally and Wednesday night?
So we're doing a lot of different things right now. We're actually demonstrating to organize. And so we're not just organizing demonstrations. What we're asking people to do is to come. We're gonna ask you, are you part of your neighborhood association? If you're not, go back to your community, join your neighborhood association, go to the neighborhood meeting, find out exactly what's going on with the policing in your community, because there's a report that's given during those meetings, and then come back to the People's Assembly the next day, which is noontime every day, and then 9 o'clock is marches and demonstrations. Come back into the People's Assembly and give us a sense of what's going on in your community. That's part of the strategy to get to the place of accountability that we've been asking for. A Citizens Review Board has been a very elusive ask, especially in North Charleston, but also downtown. More than 2,000 people have asked for an independent audit of both police departments, and our requests have been denied. And so the people's voice is being denied, accountability is not being put into place, so we're willing to take it in our own hands. And so when people come out to the demonstrations, we're asking them to organize in their community. We're not asking them to be in the street shouting. We only need to do that every now and then. What we need to be doing is organizing in our community, taking personal accountability for what's going on in our community, and taking neighborhood accountability for what's happening with our children and with the police within our community. And so that's the kind of method that we're taking. We're forming a Citizens Review Board, but we're building it from the ground up.
And I understand that you actually don't want that right now in North Charleston because of the way it's being formed.
So it's a Citizens Advisory Council. What they did is they took away the investigatory powers, the disciplinary powers, and the elected part of it. So we asked for an elected board that we could actually trust. They did not write that in there. We acted for a board that has investigatory powers. So if there's officers in our community that are harassing our children, or officers that are abusing their power, we can hold them accountable. We'll have a board to hold them accountable. That is not in there. And so on Thursday, the 21st at 5 o'clock, we're gonna be at North Charleston City Hall at the Public Safety Committee meeting, putting a full stop to that charade, because it is a charade. And we're gonna ask the city of North Charleston to begin this process over again with all of us engaged in thinking about how we can improve public safety in our community. If you look at what's going on in our communities are not safe. They're not safe because the police are not doing their job. They're not safe because there's a lack of opportunity. They're not safe because people are not taking accountability. That's the churches, those are the police officers, those are the individual parents. None of us are taking responsibility and being held accountable for what's going on in our community. We cannot rely upon the police any longer. We have to look at making our community safe and being able to tell the police officers, this is when we need you. We don't need you right now, so we don't need your presence right now. That's the kind of discussion we have to have. It's about personal accountability and neighborhood accountability. It's about having oversight over the police and how they operate within our community, the same way that people that live in a gated community have oversight about how police operate within their community. They hire their own security company. They don't even deal with the public security. So if we're looking at public versus private ways of doing things and securing public safety, we're also entertaining the idea of starting our own security companies. The public is failing. Public safety and the public safety officers are failing. We still have youth getting killed, killing each other. These officers, in the way that they're trying to secure public safety, is not working. We as the community have to step in and change that. We have to demonstrate some responsibility for securing the accountability and of our community, of the people that live in our community, and anybody that works in our community. We cannot have policing based upon numbers. Predictive policing leads to racial profiling. It leads to cops driving around our community looking for a crime, but firefighters don't drive around looking for a fire. So the way that they're thinking about policing is based upon numbers and it's objective. We want to switch to something that's more subjective, that's based upon the intimate knowledge of the community. That's why we're asking people to come out to the demonstration, but go back to your community, join your neighborhood association. Let's figure out what's going on with the police and the community and the youth in your community, where you are.
Let's go back to Wednesday night, because I'm wondering, how did that night start and how did it end? Because a lot of people say that, you know, it started out peaceful and then it started out as a tense situation at King and Queen Streets.
It was a beautiful gathering of people who care, that are very disturbed, that are experiencing a crisis of democracy in this country, that want to have their voices heard, and that want something to change. And so we did beautiful marches, beautiful demonstrations. We sat down and we heard from mothers who have children that have died at the hands of the police.
At the sit-in
on Wednesday. It was a powerful experience, a deeply powerful experience. When we called for the end of the circle, that was the end of the circle. What happened after that has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter Charleston.
Okay.
So that's really all I have to say about that.
When you hear that an officer allegedly got hit with a brick, what do you say to that?
Black Lives Matter Charleston believes in nonviolent demonstration, believes in the nonviolent process to civil disobedience.
Okay.
But those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. This is a crisis of democracy. The legitimacy of the authority of the police and of the legitimate state that's supposed to be protecting its citizens' rights is all in question right now. That means all bets are off the table. That means there are people who see that they have no legal redress, they have no protector, and they are willing to protect themselves and protect their community. This is the place that we're at. This is a very serious time that we're living in. This is a crisis.
As you know, United States Senator Tim Scott spoke on the United States Senate floor about being pulled over as an African American senator. I'm wondering, what goes through your mind when you hear that?
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that Tim Scott is willing to share his experience as a black man, especially in a critical time when we're having a crisis of democracy. Him and his party have a very important role to play in actually moving this discourse forward across the aisle. And so I'm excited that he's willing to use his personal experience to substantiate the claims of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, his life matters every time that somebody is abused by the police or profiled by the police because of the color of their skin is an opportunity for us to look in the mirror as a nation, look at our conscience and move forward. I applaud him for standing up and being able to help move that conversation forward across the aisle. Everybody that has a Tim Scott sticker in their house and on their bumper is now having to process the fact that Tim Scott is being racially profiled, just like people in the streets that are saying Black Lives Matter.
Describe to me the following one word: Marvin Emanuel 1 year later.
Sad.
The Confederate flag removal 1 year later.
Sad.
Muhiyyidin D Baha, the person. That people don't know.
Revolutionary, peaceful revolutionary. Brother, I'm going to say this very frankly. Either we figure out how to protect ourselves and secure public safety in our community, and we take responsibility for where we live and what's going on, or we'll always be relying upon other people to come into our community to make things better. That is essentially the root of the problem.
Well, Muhiyyidin D Baha, it's always good talking to you. Thank you so much.
Out to the people.
I appreciate that. Thank you.